Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. It's day 4 of the Iran-Israel war. What began as missile exchanges has now spiraled into a full-scale conflict. Israeli fighter jets are striking deep inside Iranian territory. Iran is firing back and civilians are being trapped in the middle. Israel's objective here is clear: to dismantle the regime and cripple Iran's nuclear program. But will Israel succeed in this attempt, or will this push Tehran to finally build a bomb? And what does this mean for the future of West Asia? Also, is in this digital war zone, several videos are doing the rounds. They're going viral on social media. We picked up 5 viral videos that define the war so far. And as Pakistan sides with its brother Iran, will it offer nuclear support to them? Also, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is heading to the G7 in Canada, but before that he made a quick stop at Cyprus. What does this visit mean? Why does it matter? And in Canada, will the Khalistanis derail a reset between New Delhi and Ottawa? All this and more coming up. The headlines first. In India, the Narendra Modi government announces dates for the population census. This will be India's first population census since 2011. It will be conducted in 2 phases on 1st October 2026 and 1st March 2027. The nationwide head count will go digital for the first time. France shuts Israeli weapon booths at the Paris Air Show. Israel calls the move outrageous. French sources claim the booths displayed weapons that could be used in Gaza, which violates agreements made with the Israeli authorities. The aerospace event comes just days after the deadly crash of Air India's Boeing Dreamliner. Trouble brewing for former Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. The country's war crimes court has ordered her to return home to stand trial. Hasina is facing charges that amount to crimes against humanity. Last August, mass protests toppled her government, forcing Hasina to flee Dhaka and seek refuge in India. The suspected killer of a US lawmaker will appear in court today. The attacker was arrested after a 2-day manhunt, which was the largest in Minnesota's history. The suspect allegedly disguised himself as a police officer before shooting the Democratic lawmaker and her husband at their home on Saturday. More than 6,000 people have fled their homes in central Nigeria after gunmen killed at least 100 people last week. There has been a surge in violence in the region, with Muslim herders clashing with Christian farmers. The state is among Nigeria's biggest food-producing ones. And Cambodia threatens to ban all Thai fruit and vegetable imports. Phnom Penh wants Bangkok to lift border crossing restrictions. This is the latest round of the border spat between the two countries. In the month of May, a Cambodian soldier was killed as troops from both sides exchanged fire. West Asia had feared this day for decades, a war between Iran and Israel. No more fighting in the shadows, no more proxy conflicts, a direct war between Iran and Israel, and it's as deadly as we feared. Israeli jets are operating freely over Iran. Iranian missiles are crashing into Tel Aviv and caught in the crossfire. Not Ayatollah Khamenei or Benjamin Netanyahu, but innocent Iranians and Israelis. They're the ones who are facing the worst of this. This is the fourth day of the fighting. Israel hit Iranian nuclear sites on Friday morning. They also took out top Iranian commanders, including their army chief. At first, Tehran was shocked. They had no clue what hit them. But by Friday night, they began responding. And since then, Iran has fired ballistic missiles every night, on Saturday, on Sunday, and chances are even tonight. We'll look at the Iranian operation first. Then we'll turn to Israel. So far, Tehran has fired 370 ballistic missiles at Israel. 370 ballistic missiles plus hundreds of cheaper drones. 40 of those missiles were fired overnight, 40. You could see them streak over West Asian skies. Take a look at this. The target was northern and central Israel. Let me pull up the map for you. Iran hit the port city of Haifa this morning. This port handles 30% of Israel's imports. They also hit Tamra in the north, Tel Aviv, the administrative center, Bat Yam in central Israel, and Rehovot, also in central Israel. Pictures confirm a number of direct missile hits. Some of them were residential buildings. Take a look at this. Most Israelis had rushed into bomb shelters, yet casualties have been reported, at least 8 deaths overnight and 24 in total, plus more than 500 people injured. So what happened to their air defenses, the Israeli defenses? The thing is, no system is perfect. Israel's air defenses have around 90% success rate. 90%. But Iran is overwhelming it. If you fire 100 missiles, 10 will get through, and that is what Tehran is doing. Their president released a statement yesterday. He says he is not looking to expand the war, but if Israel provokes, the response will be severe.
We are by no means seeking to expand the war, but naturally, as our army, our powerful IRGC, and our dear people have shown, appropriate responses have been given so far. The more they try to escalate, naturally, the responses will become tougher and more severe. More innocent people may lose their lives.
Now we come to Israel. Their operations appear to be more targeted, quite opposite to what we saw in Gaza. Israel is hitting 3 sets of targets in Iran: nuclear facilities, air defense systems, and top military commanders. By Saturday, Israel claimed it had air superiority from western Iran to Tehran. What does that mean? It means that Israel had largely taken out Iran's air defenses. So Israeli warplanes could operate freely over this region without any fear of being shot down. And since then, we've seen multiple airstrikes. Yesterday, 50 Israeli fighter jets targeted Iran. They hit more than 100 targets, including air defense units, missile storage facilities, and even the Defense Ministry headquarters. Israel has released footage of some of those attacks. Take a look at this. That doesn't look good for Iran. Their assets are basically sitting ducks. Plus, some of their top leaders are being taken out. Yesterday, Israeli fighter jets killed 4 Iranian commanders, the Revolutionary Guard's intel chief, his deputy, the chief of the Quds Force intelligence, and his deputy. Basically, the top level of Iranian intelligence has been wiped out in these strikes. The idea is to cripple Tehran's decision-making. And what about civilians? More than 200 people have been killed so far, plus 1,200 people are injured. Unlike Israel, Iran does not have a network of bunkers, nor does it have advanced air defenses. And don't forget, Iran is defending alone. Israel has help from the US and Arab allies. They're shooting down Iranian missiles together, all of them. Yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu made a bold declaration. He said, Tehran is burning.
Our wonderful pilots are above Tehran. Tehran is burning. But we are aiming not at civilians, even though we told them to evacuate, and they are evacuating. It's happening now. You don't hear of it because the Iranians are hiding it, but this is what is happening.
Spare a thought for the civilians. In Israel, they're holed up in bunkers. Every night, they see streaks of light over the skies. Imagine being in that situation with your family, with your children. It must be terrifying. And it's arguably worse for Iranians. They have no bomb shelters to protect them, no air defenses to neutralize Israeli jets. Many of them are fleeing Tehran. And this is the reality of war. The question is, what happens next? Well, a lot depends on the international community, especially the Americans. Israel is hoping that the US will join them in attacking Iran, but President Donald Trump has said no. He wants a deal between Israel and Iran.
Mr. President, can you give us a sense of what you're doing to try to de-escalate the situation between Iran and Israel?
Well, I hope there's going to be a deal. I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens. But sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
So far, Iran has not targeted the US. They have blamed America for helping Israel. But they have not hit any American assets in the region, and there are a lot of them. Nonetheless, Trump is deploying more firepower. He is moving an aircraft carrier from Southeast Asia to West Asia, the USS Nimitz carrier. If the US is dragged in, this war could turn very ugly. It would also damage the global economy. In fact, you can already see the impact. Oil prices surged almost 7% on Friday, which is why most countries would like to see this war end. But will Israel and Iran agree? Israel clearly has a military edge. They may not get a chance like this again, not just to degrade the nuclear program, but to weaken the Iranian regime. At the same time, Tehran is not collapsing. Dozens of their military commanders have been killed, yes, yet Iran is firing missiles at will. And they have a lot more left, a lot of firepower. Reports say Iran has a stockpile of 3,000 missiles. They may not be able to defend, but they can certainly attack. Neither side is likely to step back on their own. Either they will have to be defeated on the battlefield, or there must be significant outside pressure. We'll be tracking this closely. And here's the thing about wars like this. They don't just unfold on the battlefield. They erupt on screens. They're live streamed in real time from rooftops, from bunkers, and from the streets. A missile streaking across the night sky, a blast caught in seconds, a blurry video from the streets. This is not just war as it happens. It is war as it is witnessed, recorded, and shared. So here's a look at the 5 videos from this war, the 5 videos, 5 moments that have defined the conflict so far. The first one caught Israel's Iron Dome in action. You must have seen it by now. Bright streaks of light crisscrossing through the night sky. Dozens of Iranian missiles came in fast. Israel's Iron Dome responded faster. Cameras from apartment balconies captured all of it. The sirens wailing, the trails of light streaking upward, the explosions midair, and missiles trying to knock out incoming threats. The Iron Dome intercepted most of the missiles, but it still missed some. And that brings us to Haifa. It is a port city in Israel's north. The Haifa port is the largest international port in Israel. It is one of the largest in the Mediterranean, in fact. It handles a bulk of trade, around 30 million tons of cargo every year. So Haifa became a target for Iran's missiles. The video on your screens is from the dead of the night. It shows a missile striking Haifa. Thick black smoke rises into the sky, and soon flames visible from a distance. First responders race to the scene. People are trapped, buildings are damaged, and there is smoke everywhere. At least 30 people were injured in this one. And mind you, this is not just a civilian zone, this is strategic infrastructure. So a strike on Haifa meant more than just damage. It was also a message to Israel. But that wasn't the only burning sky we saw that day. Look at our third video. Iran targeted Israel's infrastructure. So Israel went for Tehran's oil depots like this one. The Shahran oil depot in Tehran, it is located in the northwest of the capital. Israel hit this oil depot in a strike. You could see the panic, the fire crew scrambling, the skyline stained with smoke. And why is this important? The Shahran oil depot is one of Tehran's largest fuel storage hubs. It has a storage capacity of 260 million tons. And that makes it very, very important for Iran. And that is precisely why Israel chose to strike it. For our fourth video, there's a different POV, a war from 30,000 feet in the sky. This was the scene on board an Emirates flight. It was flying over Iraq. Passengers glanced out of the window, expecting clouds. But this is what they saw. Those are missiles being launched from Iranian soil. You can see giant boosters lighting up, streaking away into the distance, headed straight towards Israel. It looks terrifying. And what strikes you is the normalcy of the moment. Here is a plane full of people headed to their destination, and they're suddenly reminded of the war below. But the most surreal video is not even from the battlefield. It is from a party in Lebanon. In fact, we have two videos. Let me show you the video, the first one. The kind of video you replay just to confirm if it's real. There's a rooftop party in Lebanon. A saxophonist is playing music. Above them, Iranian missiles streak towards Israel. The contrast is haunting. There's a war above, yet the musician doesn't seem to stop. It's a glimpse of life in West Asia itself. There's another such video. It's also from Lebanon, where a wedding is taking place, and in the skies you can see missiles heading to Israel. That's the thing about wars in this region. West Asia is no stranger to conflict, and over the years it has learned to live with it. Missiles may fire above their heads, but life continues below. And these 5 videos may seem like fragments, like clips from different cities, different moments, but if you put them together, they tell a bigger story. The story of a war that is being witnessed in real time. We may not know how this war ends, but we do know how it's being recorded and consumed, one viral video at a time. So Israel is determined to keep the fight going. It has one clear goal: to set back, if not dismantle, Iran's nuclear program. That's what these operations are designed to do. But this goal comes with an enormous risk. Israel is attacking active nuclear plants. In fact, they attacked the Natanz facility. This is Iran's main enrichment facility, Natanz. It was among the first sites to be hit, but reports say it was not the only one. Isfahan and Fordo may also have been hit. And this is a serious escalation because such attacks can trigger radiation leaks. They can poison people. They can contaminate land and water. They can cause the release of radioactive material. Thankfully, none of that has happened so far, but the risk is not over. The United Nations nuclear watchdog has raised an alarm. That's the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN nuclear watchdog. It is headed by a man called Rafael Grossi. He has issued a grave warning. He has condemned Israel's attacks, saying that they could lead to radioactive leaks. And the impact would be felt and seen in regions beyond the Iranian border.
Military escalation threatens lives, increases the chance of a radiological release with serious consequences for people and the environment, and delays indispensable work towards a diplomatic solution for the long-term assurance that Iran does not acquire nuclear weapons. Consistent with the objective of the IAEA and its statute, I call on all parties to exercise maximum restraint to avoid further escalation.
The IAEA has confirmed the Israeli strikes on Natanz. This is where Tehran enriches uranium. The IAEA says Israel's strike, and I'm quoting, caused radioactive and chemical contamination. This means there was a leak, but it was limited to the site. Until yesterday, Israel had knocked out centrifuges at the facility. There was a sudden loss of power. Reports say this caused some damage. Some 14,000 centrifuges may have been affected. They were installed underground. And what are centrifuges? These are machines used to enrich uranium. It is a necessary ingredient to make a nuclear bomb. Reports say Israel hit 4 buildings at the Isfahan site. 2 of them were linked to nuclear weapons development. The first building was a uranium conversion facility. It prepares uranium gas for enrichment. The second facility was a fuel fabrication plant. It produces uranium metal, the kind that is used in warhead design. Overall, Israel's goal was to strike multiple targets and inflict sweeping losses to Iran's nuclear supply chain. They also killed up to 10 nuclear scientists. But Iran's nuclear stockpile remains intact. So far, there are no reports of a major leak, but as long as this war continues, those supplies remain at risk. Reports say Iran has enriched uranium to 60% purity. That is close to weapons grade, 60% enriched uranium. Experts say this stockpile could fuel at least 10 nuclear weapons. Although Iran insists it will not build a bomb.
We will still refrain from pursuing a nuclear bomb. Of course, we don't know what will happen in the future, but we still uphold the fatwa of the supreme leader and move forward accordingly. We have to see how events unfold in the future, but for now, we have no intention of going toward a nuclear bomb.
Iran and Israel have a history of targeting nuclear sites. In 1980, Iran carried out an operation. It was called Operation Scorched Sword. It bombed a nuclear reactor in Iraq. Iraq said it was building a reactor for civilian use. But Iran feared that Iraq was building a bomb, so they struck it. And that attack caused only minor damage, but it did slow down Iraq's program. 1 year later, in 1981, Israel struck the same site in Iraq, and they named it Operation Opera. They destroyed Iraq's reactor. Today, Israel and Iran are engaged in a direct conflict. Israel is striking Iran to stop it from building a nuclear bomb. What was once a shadow conflict is now out in the open, and it could soon become a full-blown nuclear crisis.
Could certainly be the result because the Iran regime is very weak.
On paper, Israel says it's about one thing: stopping Iran from going nuclear. That's been the official line for years, in fact. But if you listen closely, you'll hear something else slipping through. The push for a regime change, the fall of the Ayatollah, the end of the Islamic Republic, and the birth of a new Iran. Look at the trajectory of Israel's actions. First, their strikes killed Iranian top leaders, their 3 top military commanders, and many senior nuclear scientists. Then Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a speech, but the Israeli Prime Minister did not address the clerics. He spoke directly to the people of Iran. He addressed the people of Iran. He said it was time they stood up for freedom and rose against the regime.
Islamic regime, which has oppressed you for nearly 50 years, threatens to destroy my country, the State of Israel. The objective of Israel's military operation is to remove this threat, both the nuclear threat and the ballistic missile threat to Israel. And as we achieve our objectives, we're also clearing the path for you to achieve your objective, which is freedom.
Netanyahu did not stop at that. Reports suggest Israel had a plan to kill Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei. They had a plan to assassinate him, but they did not go ahead with it. Do you know why? Because apparently it was rejected by Donald Trump, the US president. He thought it was not, and I'm quoting, it was not a good idea. That's what Trump is said to have said. And he vetoed the plan. Now, Trump has not officially commented on this, but Netanyahu has dismissed it.
There's so many false reports of conversations that never happened, and I'm not going to get into that, but I can tell you, I think that we do what we need to do. We'll do what we need to do, and I think the United States knows what is good for the United States, and I'm just not going to get it.
But in the same interview, the Israeli Prime Minister was asked about regime change, and this is what he had to say.
Be the result because the Iran regime is very weak. I think it's basically left with two things. It's plans to have atomic bombs and ballistic missiles. That's basically what Iran has. They certainly don't have the people. 80% of the people will throw these theological thugs out. I mean, they murder them. They oppress them for 46 years. They've yearned for freedom.
So Netanyahu might be betting that this chaos sets off something bigger, a chain reaction, a protest movement, maybe even a coup. But that's a huge gamble, and history is really not on his side, on the Israeli leader's side. It's not like Iran has not been here before. They've seen all of this. Since 1979, this regime has survived pretty much everything. A brutal war with Iraq, decades of crushing sanctions, assassinations, cyber attacks, and mass protests, so many of them. It's taken all these punches and stood tall. Take the 2022 protests, the Masha Amini protests, for example. It looked like a turning point in the country, but the regime cracked down hard, and eventually the streets were quiet again. So yes, Iran's people are angry, the economy is a mess, rights are eroding, hope is thin, but the question is not whether Iranians are fed up. The question is, do they see this as the moment, this moment as a reason to rise up? Because right now, Israeli bombs are falling from the sky. Ordinary Iranians are dying because of those bombs. Nothing unites a fractured nation like a common enemy. And that common enemy for the Iranians, as of today, is Israel. So Iranians may see this as a reason to rally around the flag instead. Let's imagine Israel succeeds. Let's say Iran's regime does collapse. Khamenei flees the country. Then who replaces him? Well, no one knows the answer. Iranian opposition forces are divided. On one side, there's Reza Pahlavi, the son of Iran's last Shah. He's in exile, living in the United States. He commands some nostalgic loyalty, but he has no clear base. And then there's the MEK, the Mujahideen-e-Khalq. It is a left-wing Muslim group. They want to overthrow the regime. They were once aligned with Saddam Hussein. They have Washington connections, but Iranians do not trust them very much. Then there are the secular reformists. They have charisma but no structure. There are other groups too, the monarchists, the leftists, the nationalists, the activists. Each has a different vision, a vision of what comes after the Islamic Republic. But none of those visions align. So if the regime does fall, there is no replacement waiting in the wings. It does not automatically mean democracy, the fall of this regime. It could more likely mean chaos. Iran is a country of 90 million people. If it becomes a failed state, it's a terrifying prospect, not just for the people of Iran, but for the whole region. Think Syria, but 10 times larger. There will be power vacuums, refugee crises, and maybe nuclear weapons in unknown hands. So Netanyahu may be betting on regime change. But let's be clear, that's a very high-risk gamble, because trying to take down a regime is one thing, replacing it is another. And if Israel is wrong, the world may not get a new Iran. It may get a broken one, led by groups far worse than the current lot.
We fully support Iran's new jet program.
Add Pakistan to any problem and it becomes worse. And it's no different in West Asia. Islamabad is making some worrying moves. They're the only Muslim country with a nuclear bomb. And looks like they're in the mood to share it. Says who? A top Iranian general. He says Pakistan has given them a nuclear pledge. If Israel drops a nuke on Iran, Pakistan will drop a nuke on Israel. This is what he said. Listen to this.
Pakistan will drop a nuclear bomb on Israel if Israel drops a nuclear bomb on Iran.
That's what Iran is saying. What is Pakistan saying? Well, their foreign minister spoke in parliament today and he categorically denied it.
इसको कोट करके कि जी पाकिस्तान ने ये कहा है कि अगर इसराइल ने हमारे ऊपर न्यूक अटैक किया तो पाकिस्तान इसराइल के ऊपर न्यूक्लियर हमला कर देगा ये इतनी गैर ज़िम्मेदाराना और इतनी झूठी खबर है.
But this whole episode is quite confusing. For starters, why would Pakistan make such a pledge? If they did not, why would Iran lie about it? And that too on their national television. To understand that, let's look at Pakistan's position. What stakes do they have in this war? Like most Muslim nations, Pakistan does not recognize Israel. They also condemned the strikes on Friday. Then on Saturday, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif spoke to Iran's president, and here's what he said later. I'm quoting, "I expressed Pakistan's unwavering solidarity with the brotherly people of Iran in the face of Israel's unprovoked aggression, strongly condemned the violation of Iran's sovereignty and territorial integrity, an affront to international law and the UN Charter. Iran has every right to self-defense." It's funny to hear this from Pakistan. Nonetheless, it's a very strong statement, much stronger than what we heard from Arab nations. Islamabad has two concerns here. The first is a spillover. Pakistan shares a big border with Iran. It's more than 900 kilometers long. And if things escalate, that could become a problem for Islamabad, which is why they have shut the border. Pakistanis cannot cross over into Iran anymore. The border is sealed. Even flights to Iran and Iraq have been suspended. So that is the first concern, a spillover. The second concern is political. Pakistan is very close to the US and its Arab allies, but the Arab world does not like Iran. Iran is a Shia Muslim country, and Arab nations are largely Sunni. So Pakistan always kept its distance from Tehran. Plus, they have their own bilateral problems. Iran says Pakistan is shielding Baloch terror groups. This led to a brief flashpoint last year, in fact. Iran launched airstrikes on terror camps in Pakistan, and Pakistan hit back with strikes of its own. And at that point, this relationship looked very weak. So what has changed? Why is Islamabad standing with Iran? Well, there are three possible reasons. Number one, the China factor. Beijing has good ties with both these countries, with both Islamabad and Tehran. They signed a 25-year deal with Iran. That was in 2021. They signed a 25-year deal. The goal was to invest $400 billion in Iran's economy, which is gold dust for them, the Iranians. China too stands to gain from this deal. They are hoping to get a foothold in West Asia. But for that, the Iranian regime must survive. Next is factor number two, to rally popular support at home. The Pakistani public has always supported Palestine. Last year, they began boycotting brands linked to Israel. So it's politically savvy to stand with Iran. Islamabad can show itself to be a defender of Muslims. Which brings us to reason number three, to create a rift between Iran and India. India too enjoys close ties with Iran, but New Delhi has been neutral in this war. India did not condemn Israel's airstrikes on Friday. Perhaps Pakistan is tempted to capitalize on that, to drive Iran away from New Delhi. Whatever the reason, this episode raises two questions. Can Pakistan nuke Israel, and will Pakistan nuke Israel? The first answer is yes, they can do it. Pakistan's Shaheen-3 missile has a range of 2,700 kilometers, so technically they can strike anywhere in Israel if they want to. As for the second question, the answer is no. It would be ludicrous for Pakistan to even think about launching a nuke at Israel. Chances are this claim was more about deterrence, to sort of raise the stakes for Israel. We would advise against it, though. This is a country that could not defend itself. How can they possibly defend someone else? As the conflict in West Asia escalates, Indian students in Iran are caught in the crossfire. As missiles fell on Iranian cities over the weekend, students took cover in the basements of their dorms. Most of them are medical students. More than 1,500 of them study in Iran. Many are from Jammu and Kashmir. They chose Iran for its affordable medical degrees. Now their future hangs in the balance. The Indian embassy in Tehran is moving students to safer areas and planning possible evacuation routes. Students from some universities have already been moved to safety. Iran has shut its airspace, so students may need to exit through land borders now. Russia has already evacuated its citizens, and India is moving in that direction too. Here's a report.
The missiles fell without warning. In the dead of night, Iran came under fire. And Indian students were caught in the middle. They had no time to prepare, only time to hide. Many rushed to dormitory basements, terrified, unsure if they will make it to morning. A student from Jammu and Kashmir said, "We haven't slept in 3 days." Another claimed, they woke up at 2:30 a.m. to explosions. These are future doctors. These Indian students study medicine in Iran. Today, they are victims of war. Most are in cities like Tehran, Isfahan, and Shiraz. They heard the sirens. They saw the night sky light up with Israeli missiles, and they feared the worst. As the conflict escalated, New Delhi moved quickly. The Indian embassy in Tehran began tracking the situation. Diplomats reached out to the students. They were moved to safer areas. And preparations are underway for an evacuation. Iran responded to India's request. But there's a complication. Iran has shut its airspace, so flights are not an option. Instead, Tehran has offered land routes. Students can exit by crossing over to Iran's neighbors. India is now exploring those options. This includes a possible evacuation route via Armenia. India isn't the only country pulling people out. Russia has already begun evacuating its citizens. It has halted activities of its mission to Iran. How do these students end up in Iran? There are over 1,500 Indian students. Most of them are from Jammu and Kashmir, and many of them study medicine. Why did they choose Iran? Because medical education is cheaper there than in private colleges in India. Living costs are also low, and the universities are globally recognized. Iranian medical schools are certified by WHO. Their degrees are valid across multiple countries. Many universities teach in English, which removes the language barrier. For thousands of young Indians, Iran is a gateway to affordable education and a medical career. But now a risky one. With every strike, their fears are growing. Will they be able to complete their studies? Will they have to leave it all behind? For now, there are more questions than answers. The war between Israel and Iran is escalating, and the future of Indian students remains uncertain. Their safety is the immediate concern, but their education, careers, and dreams are also at stake.
Symbols play a key role in diplomacy. Sometimes images are more powerful than long speeches or statements, and that's what Prime Minister Modi's visit to Cyprus has demonstrated. It was the first stop in his three-nation tour. He's on his way to Canada to attend the G7 summit. On his return, he will stop in Croatia. But first, let's talk about Cyprus and the signals the Indian Prime Minister sent from there. We've been telling you why this visit matters. Prime Minister Modi's stopover in Cyprus was more than a courtesy. It was a calculated message directed at Turkey. Turkey, as you know, has come out in open support of Pakistan. It supported Pakistan's military during Operation Sindoor. Turkey armed them against India. Turkish drones were deployed against Indian civilians. And Turkey has been offering Pakistan diplomatic cover, acting as their shield, protecting Islamabad and its terror proxies. Now, against this backdrop, Prime Minister Modi visited Cyprus, and from there he delivered three sharp messages. Each one took an aim at Turkey. The first one was on territorial integrity. Prime Minister Modi extended India's full support for the sovereignty of Cyprus. A joint statement was issued today. It said, and I quote, "India reiterated its unwavering and consistent support for the independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity and unity of the Republic of Cyprus." Now, this may sound like a routine statement, but it's not. Because after this statement, some photographs came out. Prime Minister Modi toured the capital of Cyprus, Nicosia. He visited the Green Line. Now, this Green Line is basically a United Nations buffer zone. It separates Greek Cyprus from the Turkish-controlled north. Cyprus has been divided into two parts, the Greek part and the Turkish-controlled northern part. Now, let me give you a quick primer. Cyprus was invaded by Turkey. This was in 1974. Turkey invaded Cyprus. This was in response to a military coup on the island. So Turkish forces invaded and they occupied 1/3 of Cyprus. And that portion still remains under Turkish control. Only Turkey recognizes this land as a separate state, and they call it Northern Cyprus. No other country in the world supports Turkey's position on this. Now, during the visit today, Prime Minister Modi stood just meters away from this Green Line. Just meters away from the Turkish-controlled territory begins. And the President of Cyprus was with him. He showed him the Turkish flag on the northern side. Look at these pictures. You can see the Turkish flag in the Indian Prime Minister's backdrop. Now, this is a powerful message, this visit, a message of solidarity for Cyprus and a message to Turkey. India is signaling that it stands with Cyprus in this dispute. And Prime Minister Modi's second message was equally powerful. It was over the issue of terrorism. He thanked Cyprus for standing with India. After the Pahalgam terror attack, Cyprus expressed support to India. Both sides called for a zero tolerance approach to terror. They demanded the elimination of terror networks and punishment for terrorists.
The visit of the Prime Minister is the first of the country since the recent cowardly terrorist attack in Pahalgam. I want to repeat publicly the full support of Cyprus to India's actions against the battling of terrorism in every form. Terrorism cannot be accepted.
To achieve this objective, India and Cyprus are joining hands. They will now share real-time intelligence to tackle the threat from terrorists, the trafficking of arms and drug smuggling. So India and Cyprus now share a security alliance. It stands in contrast to the Turkey-Pakistan axis, an axis that shelters extremist groups and promotes instability in the region. Prime Minister Modi's third message was focused on regional alignment. Cyprus is strategically significant for India. It can act as a bridge to Europe and a partner in regional trade. The Indian Prime Minister held important engagements in Cyprus. He attended a business roundtable. There is talk of advancing the India-Middle East-Europe corridor, better known as IMEC. This is an upcoming trade corridor to connect India with Europe via West Asia. And Cyprus wants to become a part of it. And that's not all. Prime Minister Modi also highlighted the potential of India-Cyprus bilateral trade. Both sides also discussed UPI, India's unified payments interface for digital payments. It created a payments revolution in India by simplifying small but immediate bank transfers. 7 foreign nations now accept UPI. India is in talks to extend this facility to Cyprus now. And this economic pitch strengthens the larger signal. India is offering its hand to partners who value stability, and it is bypassing those that don't, like Turkey. But this visit was not only about confrontation. Developments in the wider region also figured in the discussions. Prime Minister Modi expressed concerns over the Israel-Iran conflict. He said this is not an era of war. That's something that he's said in the past for the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
पश्चिम एशिया और यूरोप में चल रहे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को लेकर हम दोनों ने चिंता व्यक्त की है। इनका नकारात्मक प्रभाव केवल उस क्षेत्र तक सीमित नहीं है। हम दोनों मानते हैं कि यह युद्ध का युग नहीं है। संवाद से समाधान और स्थिरता की बहाली ये मानवता की पुकार है।
Cyprus also awarded Prime Minister Modi its highest honor, the Grand Cross of the Order of Makarios III. Prime Minister Modi dedicated the award to Indian citizens and to the friendship between India and Cyprus. Such visits often go unnoticed on the diplomatic calendar, but this one stood out because it made a clear statement about India's intent and its resolve to defend its interests. Prime Minister Modi's trip is not over. Cyprus was just the first stop. Like we said, as we speak, he's heading to Canada, to Calgary for the G7 summit. The venue itself is a story here. As you know, ties between India and Canada are near rock bottom. Initial reports said Ottawa would not even invite Prime Minister Modi, but eventually they did. The Indian Prime Minister will be in Canada on Monday and Tuesday. The question is, could this lead to a reset? Well, the pictures are not encouraging. Khalistanis are camping in Calgary to protest Prime Minister Modi. They are being led by the SFJ, the Sikhs for Justice, the same group led by Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. He recently posted a video message. Pannu is calling for Khalistanis to ambush the Indian Prime Minister. Listen to this.
I want to thank Mark Carney, more of a businessman than a Canadian Prime Minister upholding Canadian values, for giving pro-Khalistan Sikhs a historic opportunity, an opportunity to ambush Modi's politics right in front of G7 nations during G7 from June 16th to June 17th. Sikhs for Justice is going to launch 48 hours ambush Modi politics from landing to takeoff.
The Khalistanis are doing it. They have taken out massive rallies. They're carrying effigies of Prime Minister Modi in prison clothes. Some of them openly say they want to kill Modi's politics. Yet what is Canada doing? Well, nothing so far. They have not denied permission for these rallies, nor have they broken up the protests. And frankly, this is looking ominous. Calgary already has a Khalistan streak. Last year, SFJ held a referendum in this city. Almost 50,000 people turned up to vote. But tomorrow they won't be alone. The Indian diaspora tends to mobilize when the Prime Minister travels. They welcome Prime Minister Modi at airports. They greet him at hotels. They line up along the road. So what happens if they come face to face with these Khalistanis? I hope Canadian cops have thought about it. And that's the immediate concern, to ensure that this trip ends without any incident. Which brings us to the larger reset. Some reports say Prime Minister Modi could meet the Canadian leader Mark Carney on the sidelines of the G7. Carney is the new Prime Minister of Canada. He has a fresh mandate behind him. Plus, unlike his predecessor Justin Trudeau, he is more pragmatic. And the G7 is proof of that. Khalistani groups have criticized Carney for this move. Even political parties like the NDP have slammed him for inviting the Indian leader. The NDP is the New Democratic Party. It used to be led by Trudeau's favorite Khalistani, Jagmeet Singh. Now, they are building pressure on the Canadian leadership. Despite that backlash and pressure, Carney invited Prime Minister Modi. Reports say he has also finalized a new deal with India, a deal on intelligence and counter-terrorism. It is expected to be unveiled at the G7 summit. The idea is to step up cooperation. Indian and Canadian police will try to share information on transnational crime, on terrorism, and on extremist activities. Again, the pragmatism is clear. Khalistani extremism remains the biggest issue between India and Canada. New Delhi flagged this issue repeatedly, but Justin Trudeau ignored it. If Carney pays attention, India will appreciate. Our diplomats in Canada are hopeful. The High Commissioner says things are looking positive.
Prime Minister tweeted the moment Prime Minister Mark Carney was elected. So that was a good signal. And now we are seeing the visit happening, the invitation at his invitation. I think those hold significance in themselves. We will see how the discussion goes and what comes out of it. I would say the direction looks positive.
On paper, the reset makes sense. Canada is moving away from the United States. It is looking for new partners elsewhere, and so is India. Our trade ties with the US are at risk, so New Delhi will be happy to extend its trade with Canada, another key North American market. Having said that, India should be wary of two things. Number one, rushing into a reset. New Delhi should push for concrete action against Khalistanis, not cosmetic concessions. Because the future is uncertain. In the next election, Carney may lose his majority. He may have to turn to the NDP, just like Justin Trudeau did. Will he then appease Khalistanis too? And that's why we need concrete action. Personal promises and resets mean nothing. And secondly, we must be wary of Khalistani provocations. They clearly won't like a reset, so expect them to try and derail it. I know there will be bigger things to discuss at the G7, but this is shaping up to be a crucial subplot. Every summer, pilgrims visit India's Kedarnath temple by the thousands. Many of them use the helicopter services. But that journey is often a gamble. In the last 6 weeks, 5 helicopters have crashed, 5 in just 6 weeks. The latest crash killed 7 people. And that's just one part of the story, we say. In Pune, a century-old bridge collapsed under the weight of tourists. In Mumbai, commuters were flung off overcrowded trains. These are not isolated tragedies. These are headlines on repeat. And there's a common thread here. Safety is considered only after the disaster strikes. Our next report tells you how India treats public safety as an afterthought.
The helicopter lifted off from Kedarnath temple at 5:20 a.m. 7 people were on board, 6 pilgrims, including a 23-month-old child and a pilot. The ride to Gupt Kashi should have taken just 10 minutes, but moments later it vanished into the mist. The weather deteriorated. The pilot tried to veer the chopper away from the valley, but that did not work. The helicopter crashed. There were no survivors. This crash was the 5th helicopter-related incident in the Char Dham circuit since early May. Let that sink in. 5 accidents in just 6 weeks, which killed 13 people. Every summer, a flood of pilgrims come to Kedarnath. Hundreds of them avail the helicopter services. Yet, there is no safety guarantee. Pilots have to operate by instinct. There's no command and control center. Many operators cut corners, faulty parts are not swapped. There are no standard operating procedures. It was only after the latest crash that the helicopter services were suspended. A review was ordered. That's when SOPs were drafted. And it's something that happens all too often in India. Rules come after fatalities, not before. And it's not the only such incident. Here's another in Maharashtra's Pune. An old iron bridge over the Indrayani River collapsed. 125 tourists were standing on it when it snapped. Some were rescued, 4 drowned, the rest are still missing. Witnesses say the bridge had been shaking for 5 minutes. Locals had raised concerns in the past. However, nothing was done. And that is the essence of Indian public safety. It's never a starting point. It's almost always an afterthought. Here's another incident from India's financial capital, Mumbai. 4 people were killed after falling off overcrowded local trains in Mumbai last week. The 2 local trains were crossing each other during the peak office hours, and that's how the passengers fell. This is not a freak incident, but a near-routine grim reality. There is no space inside the trains, so commuters hang outside them. During monsoon season, they slip, and on some days they die. The tragedy triggered a flurry of announcements. Future trains will come with automatic doors. Because India doesn't plan for safety, it reacts to disaster. The real tragedy isn't just the 7 who died in the Kedarnath chopper crash, or the 4 who drowned in Pune, or the Mumbai commuters thrown off the rails. The real casualty here is public trust. Safety shouldn't come after the obituary. It should be the reason we don't need one.
Time for a story. It was July 2017. Donald Trump was just months into his presidency, and he found himself in Paris as chief guest for the Bastille Day parade. Now, Paris has given us many love stories, and on that day, it gave us a new one. Trump and parades. He has talked repeatedly about replicating that in America. And last Saturday, he did it. Trump finally managed to stage a military parade. It marked the 250th anniversary of America's army. What's more, it was the president's 79th birthday. Everything was shaping up to be perfect until the soldiers began marching. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. French President Emmanuel Macron visits a frigate and a research center in Greenland. Thousands gather in New York for an anti-Trump No Kings protest. And the Paris Air Show, which is one of the biggest aviation events in the world, kicks off in the French capital. Finally, we're taking you back in history on this day in 1976. The Soweto uprising took place in South Africa. It was a series of protests by black school children against the imposition of Afrikaans language in high schools. Police brutally attacked thousands of children, and this incident marked the beginning of the end of the apartheid system. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
first post now available in 9 languages on YouTube. English,
Stands at $36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
Geschäftsführenden Direktor,
Hindi,
$30 trillion kakarjo.
Indonesian,
Pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Sekali radikali.
Japanese,
$4 trilhão.
Portuguese,
Por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select a language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. First post.